Thank you.
Welcome back to Media Week. Well, our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week, is here with us. And to continue on with what we were just talking about with Simon Waite from Ipsos, of course, ad spend in 2015, this year, being one of the best years, I think the best year in 5 years. Is that correct?
Almost since the GFC, because back then ad spend sort of went off a cliff one year and it sort of came back quite strongly the next year. Then it's been around, just around about 2%, a little bit over. Since then, this year looks like it might end up around 2.9, which would make it the best year since that GFC recovery.
And let's talk about why, because it is all related to digital and outdoor, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's mobile, that mobile spend and the digital spend, that's just booming. And yeah, as we've heard, that outdoor's really going well. That digital, advertisers loving the digital.
And is that going to continue, do you think, next year?
Yeah, well, because they said, that's why I think it's one of the insights we got from Simon, why the outdoor sector's so bullish about why they will continue that. Because it's going to be offered as part of Emma, the agencies and the ad buyers will be able to see how good an offering it is. It stacks up against other media. So,
it'll be interesting to see. So maybe next year will be the best in 6 years.
Yeah, and they've also outlined their through the next 3 years. They think it'll be around about 2.5 for the next 3 years, 2016, 2017 and 2018.
All right, I want to talk about some of the newspapers, because The Australian, of course, farewelling the editor this week, a new one to take over. Yeah, we mentioned it last week, Chris Mitchell stepping down. I think Friday's his last day on the job this week. Paul Whittaker, I believe, will be taking over on Monday, so returning to where he's going to be the editor-in-chief now, previously being the editor, so he steps up one rung. At Courier Mail, Chris Dawes coming down from there to take over from Paul at the Daily Telegraph. Still no editor for the Courier Mail has been announced yet, so presumably they're still doing a bit of a hunt internally, you've got to think. It's usually the way News Corp does it. They promote editors around the titles within the group, and we expect that to happen here too. Yeah, so we'll hear from that soon. All right, and meantime, over at Fairfax, they've announced a Facebook partnership. I guess no surprises here. Everyone's sort of trying to get into that digital kind of world. Yeah, absolutely. Instant articles, I think, it's what it's called. These stories from smh.com.au, theage.com.au, and Fairfax's New Zealand digital product stuff.co.nz. They'll crop up in your feeds because Fairfax have a paywall on those Age and City Morning Herald products, so you know it's good to get people in. But I don't know if it'll be. So how does that work then? Well, it gives you as a limit. I can't remember what the limit is. It's 10 items a month or whatever it is. Once you hit that limit, it asks you to subscribe if you want to keep reading. If you've accessed the story through the Facebook instant article, I'm not sure what happens there. It might be a way around it. We'll wait and see. Now, Sony Music Australia has launched Parade Sports Management Company. What's behind this, and what sort of media executives? Yeah, we all know Sony Music, of course, a big successful global music company. They started a management company for music artists, people like Jessica Malboy. They manage her career as well as look after her music, so it's a good synergy there, I guess. They're going into sports management, and Mel Meninga's the first person they've signed, so pretty good get for them there. And they got him a job as the Kangaroos coach. They helped negotiate that deal. First time the Australian Rugby League national team has ever had a full-time coach. So. They've started pretty well there, and they'll be looking to sign other sports people to manage their media careers and stuff like that. They'll be also looking after Mel's, you know, make him available for radio, television commentary. Yes, it makes sense. There are synergies there. And they're going into media people management next, Ingrid. So, yeah, something to bear in mind. There you go. You or your colleagues. All right, fair enough. Sony Music, okay. Now, ABC Radio, we've heard from them recently. They've made a number of new appointments. Who's going where? Yeah, look, Wendy Harmer. Wendy Harmer's been working with the ABC for a little while, like filling in at summer, stuff like that, mainly I think Sydney breakfast show, but she's getting the Sydney, I think it's going to be statewide too, a morning slot starting next year. Of course, Wendy Harmer, we remember from Today FM, a decade #1 Sydney breakfast show there, went to Vega, a new start-up FM station for a little while, then sort of got out of radio for a little while, started online business, a very successful author. So, yeah, she's multi-talented, Wendy Harmer. Yeah, back, it was not breakfast show, she won't have get up quite so early, but a weekday morning show. And now we've got Ali Clark as well on the. Yeah, look, Ali Clark. Yeah, again, commercial radio, big star for a long time in Adelaide. Worked at Mix in Adelaide. Got poached by Triple M to go and try and replicate her success there. Didn't quite go as well. She's had a little bit of time out from radio, and so she's coming back to the ABC's going to put her to good use there in at their Adelaide. I think
is it Adelaide 891, I think is the name of the station.
And speaking of radio revenue figures for November have been a little weaker than usual. Why is that?
Yeah, look, the Sydney market was down a little bit. Sydney and Melbourne were actually down about 5% it was in Sydney, about 3% in Melbourne. The financial year-to-date figures are still in the black, though, for them, so some good growth there. I'm not sure if there's anything they've singled out as a particular reason there, but they'd be quite bullish about making a recovery and keeping some modest growth if you like.
Now, we've been talking a lot about Netflix this year and SVOD, of course. Now, they've announced sort of shows how many they're going to have in 2016, but there's also been a forecast about the potential size of the SVOD audience.
Yeah, look, one of the thing that really put Netflix on the map, particularly internationally, was their own content. You know, this was the only place you could get House of Cards, absolutely.
That pretty much put them on the map.
Yeah, look, for sure. Or particularly internationally. I mean, they were already a pretty big deal in the US, but not for their own content, just for streaming up movies.
Yeah.
Movie channel for a lot of people they were. But yeah, they've got about 16 of their own programs now. They're going to bump that up to over 30 next year. So it's pretty impressive. There'll be a massive spend there. So they'll have a few producers licking their lips and wanting to get their props off there. But yeah, we've had a forecast here about the total SVOD market could be just under 5 million by 2019, so just before the end of the decade, which sort of correlates with what Stan said back at launch. From memory, they were predicting something like about 5 million people.
It's a tough one to forecast, I imagine, though, that far in advance, when it's really only just taking a hold of the market.
But it's interesting when these two figures sort of match up. And Stan recently said there are something like 500,000 users, which is pretty good. I think they said out of that 5 million, they'd like to get around between 1 and 1.5 million to have a pretty viable business. So you could say, well, that may be a third or a bit over a third of the way there.
Okay. Well, let's move back now to free-to-air television and take a look at the ratings for week 49 now. So kicking it off with the top 5, and there's the third test, of course, in top spot. No surprise to see the cricket.
It was the last day, I think, that third test. I think it only went for 3 days, didn't it? And that did so well because it was in Perth. Though the evening, or it might have even
cricket
been...
always does well in the summer, though, doesn't it?
It was in Adelaide. Was it the day-night?
It was in Adelaide, I think.
Yeah, it was the day-night, the experiment, the first day-night test. And that night session just did fantastically well. Yeah, I think it didn't run for a long time, but those night sessions were very good with the pink ball. 2
spots there, and then the news for the rest for 7 and 9. Taking a look at the other page, the rest of the top 10 for week 49. Today, tonight, 7 News. Sunday night on 7, New Tricks for ABC, 9 News.
And news, isn't it? The news, of course, doesn't take a break over the summer, Ingrid.
There you go.
And I think Sunday night's still going too with the summer edition.
Okay, here we go. Subscription television, A Place to Call Home, doing very well for Foxtel.
Yeah, it's just finished that first season. They've ordered 2 seasons, Foxtel, so they'll have one to run in 2016 as well. But it's done great business for them.
Flash on Fox 8, The Simpsons, all the usuals, The Great Australian Bake Off as well. And you always see the sort of usuals in that one.
American Sniper, I think that was also the #1 movie on Qantas release. Some figures about their most favourite movies.
Popular.
So popular on Foxtel and for people travelling in Qantas.
The rest of the top 10 now, and there you have it, The Simpsons in there. V8 Supercars, gosh, they've been doing well lately as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Arrow for Fox 8 and Grand Designs Australia for Lifestyle.
Sure.
All right, I want to talk television in a bit more detail because the ACTA Awards were held in Sydney this week. Tell us about how this rates.
Yeah, look, they've had them in 2 parts. The first was the industry dinner, if you like, which wasn't on TV. The actual main awards, where the sort of big-ticket TV shows and movies are honoured, was shown on 7 this week on Wednesday night. Did just over 400,000, which is... look, it's not a huge number. They would have perhaps been hoping for a little more. If they'd done 500,000, they probably would have been pretty happy. Look, it's still an experiment. I think 7 have signed up for 2 years, so they mightn't have had a lot of input this year. They might try and do a little bit more next year.
Some heavy hitters there,
Kate Blanchett, yeah, and she was given the, I think it was the Longford Tyrrell Award last night for her contribution, and she gave a long speech. Didn't all make it to air. They had to edit a little bit out, but yeah, look, it did pretty well. Some of the winners were the Peter Allen miniseries made by Shine for 7 did fantastic. I think got 7 awards in total.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty good, 7 awards. All right, finally, before we go, I want to talk Carl Stefanovic, because a $6 million contract for him for 3 years.
A lot of money, yeah?
Yeah, who was bidding for him?
That's a lot of money.
I imagine that's a lot of money. I wouldn't mind $6 million.
They've worked that out at 6 million, that'd be 2 million a year.
Exactly.
He's reportedly on about 1.3 now.
So who was bidding for him? Was 7 trying to get it?
Well, there was talk that there was a bit of a bidding duel between 7 and 9. Carl's, I think, off on a bit of a break now. Apparently hasn't signed the contract yet, but But yeah, look, how would they use him next year if he comes back?
Will the verdict continue?
Well, yeah, they've ordered another season of the verdict, you know. I think it's got promise. You know, I'd like to see a little bit more arguing in there, a little bit more argy-bargy, like you get on some of the Sky News shows, those sort of panel programs. No,
rated so well.
Hasn't done great business, but, you know, I think I know it was David Gingell, the former CEO, really was a big fan of that format. So whether the new CEO is as committed, we'll see.
We'll see what happens in 2016. Well, that is all we have time for on this week's edition of Media Week. A big thank you, as always, to our co-host, James Manning. We've got more news and analysis coming up next. Don't go away.